Standing by for liftoff in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's ignition and liftoff. We have liftoff of the Falcon 9 from Launch Complex 39A, carrying more Starlink satellites and Go Internet Satellites version 2. Go. All right. Appears we're having a slight issue with the audio for a moment there. Look at that. You can kind of see the trail of the back of Falcon 9 going through the moon there. What a shot. And now you can see we are propelling up to speed. We should momentarily be getting to max Q. Again, that is the maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. And my gosh, that Falcon 9 transit in front of the moon, spectacular. The other thing that's spectacular is now as we get into the upper parts of the atmosphere, you'll start to see that trail at the back expand. As the atmosphere gets thinner, it's not pushing those 9 engine flames together as much, it allows them to kind of spread out, and you can see the 9 individual engines. I love that.
Indeed, and with this view, we will probably be able to see that Falcon 9 shuts down its engines in pairs, ending with the center engine. It's somewhat subtle, but with a view like this, it's generally somewhat noticeable, so keep an eye out for that.
And now we'll experience a few events coming up here momentarily in rapid succession. The first one being in about 15 seconds. That is MECO, or first stage main engine cutoff. That's followed just a few seconds later by the separation of the first and second stages. And lastly, again, shortly after that, we should see ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage, which is known as SES-1, or Second Engine Startup 1. So let's stand by for those coming up momentarily here. That should be MECO, main engine cutoff. This is the view kind of looking down into that first stage. And there we go. We have first and second stage separation. And lastly, on the right side of your screen there, you'll start to see it glow. And there it is. That is second engine startup. And like we were talking about a bit earlier in the stream, that thing that you saw fly away, that is the stiffener ring, which, as we mentioned, holds the shape of the Merlin vacuum engine until it gets into these thinner parts of the atmosphere. And also, just look at that glow on the grid fins on the left side of your screen. Those are not really going to be used much until we get into the thicker part of the atmosphere, but what a view. And there we go. We also have payload fairing separation. A reminder, those are to be reused again. So they will splash down about 45 minutes from now and then be picked up by one of SpaceX's recovery ships and brought back and used again.
Yeah, they will be recovered by Doug, SpaceX's other fairing recovery boat on the East Coast, Bob, is undergoing some maintenance, so Doug has been working double duty.
There you go. So one thing that's also interesting at this point, if you look in the bottom left on the first stage data, you can see that the speed is slowing down. And what we're looking for at that altitude is very shortly, it's going to just stop going up, probably within the next few kilometers or so. That is what we like to call in the business apogee, or the highest point that it will reach. After that, it then starts its downward trajectory, hopefully towards the drone ship. And it looks like it's hanging right at about that point. And there's your apogee. The speed stopped, and now it's going to increase. So that is why we have the entry burn coming up. That will help slow it down, and that entry burn should be in about 2 minutes from now or so. So it's just Trevor, how does that work in terms of the entry burn actually slowing it down? Because it's very unique with Falcon 9.
Yeah, so this is actually a really interesting question. I remember I was very surprised when I learned this the first time. Because, right, you think that the point of the entry burn is to slow down the vehicle, um, when that's actually not really the case. And you'll see in some extreme cases, the drag coefficient of Falcon 9 is actually substantially lower when the engines are firing because you have this nice, exhaust plume around it. So there are times when the booster will actually accelerate during the entry burn. So you may be thinking, what is the point of this burn? And the point is to kind of protect the vehicle while it's coming in really quickly with with the flame and the exhaust. So as we like to call it, you're kind of fighting fire with fire, uh, which is just ridiculously awesome and shows, you know, how much research they did to get these Falcon 9 boosters back.
And we should be seeing that burn any moment now, actually, on the left side of your screen. So stand by for the entry burn. And there we go. Looks like we have ignition of the three engines there, and I still love the beautiful blue and yellow colors.
Yeah, this launch has been gorgeous tonight, especially with Max's shot. Holy cow.
Yes. And this burn should last a couple more seconds here. It's scheduled to be a 25-ish second burn. And there we go. We have shutdown. And you'll notice now that it should be speeding up a little bit, but that's okay. As it gets into the thicker parts of the atmosphere, it will use drag to slow itself down, as it is now 30 kilometers above, or on its way to, the target, which is, for those who are unaware, a drone ship called Just Read the Instructions. And that's about
Yeah.
600 kilometers or so to the southeast of where it launched.
Yeah, so you can see the stage one is rapidly slowing down right now, despite no engines firing on the stage. So that's purely from aerodynamic drag.
Well,
And
once they
this
get
is
active
when,
data back, we should, yes.
yeah. And this
There we
is,
go.
yep, there we go. And this is when the grid fins are, being used to control the vehicle since they have a ton of control authority when they're in the thicker part of the atmosphere.
You can see them a little bit in the glow there. So momentarily we will have the landing burn, which should bring it to a nice soft touchdown on the drone ship, followed very shortly thereafter by the shutdown of that second stage engine known as SECO 1, or Second Engine Cutoff 1. So we'll stand by for the landing burn. Hopefully we can see it from the booster. If not, we should be able to get a view from Just Read the Instructions, the drone ship. There we go. There is that landing burn. Just a kilometer off the deck. You can see the grid fins, as you mentioned, steering, because the rocket originally aims itself away from the drone ship, and then once it confirms all systems are good, it aims itself right for that X in the middle. Landing legs deploy. And touchdown! We have a successful landing of that first stage booster on Just Read the